From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Farmers on the front lines, what one official says producers are doing in one town to keep Russian forces at bay. Going green could result in more paperwork.
Yeah, this is kind of the worst of what you can think of when you talk about climate creeping into areas of business where it doesn't really belong.
We look into a new government rule being proposed and what it could mean for you as fuel costs add up on the farm.
It's a challenging market, no doubt. Buying $8 corn and $5.50 diesel is a tremendous challenge for producers.
How long could these record high prices last? An update right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. As the Federal Reserve tries to rein in inflation, gas and diesel prices remain high. Diesel prices hitting another record on Thursday, now averaging $5.78 a gallon. That's according to AAA. Gas down a penny from the last record high set on Tuesday, now averaging $5 a gallon. And as Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan reports, even if fuel prices go down, farmers are still looking at higher production costs this year.
Gas prices continue to crush records in the U.S.
Fuel, we had some farm diesel delivered yesterday and it cost us $4.85 or $4.89 a gallon delivered. So 2 years ago we bought fuel for just over $1.
The rapid rise in input prices is eating into outlooks this year, even with higher livestock and grain prices.
It's a challenging market, no doubt. Buying $8 corn and $5.50 diesel is a tremendous challenge for producers.
Research by Texas A&M Agricultural and Food Policy Center shows farmers are seeing nearly every input cost on their farm rise this year, with nitrogen prices producing the biggest increase, up more than 133% per acre year over year. Phosphorus and potassium fertilizer, well, that's up nearly 93%, followed by fuel and lube jumping more than 86% compared to last year. And the latest baseline projections from the University of Missouri's Food and Policy Research Institute also shows the sharp rise in fuel costs today.
A 50-some% increase may or may not capture what's happening right now throughout the whole calendar year of 2022, but it is capturing at least that part that we're seeing right now.
So why have diesel prices raced higher this year? Well, it's largely due to a shortage of refining capacity, not a shortage of oil.
The nation dealing with about 1 million barrels a day less of capacity than we had just 3 years ago. That's the equivalent of about 5%. So not only is oil a problem with sanctions on Russia's oil, but turning that oil into something like gasoline and diesel is also now a choke point.
S&P Global Commodity Insights is also watching the situation at a time when the U.S. is typically building inventory again. It seems hurdle after hurdle is what's making that more difficult.
Refineries, we have less capacity. We have about 1.2 million barrels a day of less capacity because of shutdowns that occurred both prior to the pandemic, right before the pandemic started.
Another issue is refineries hit by Hurricane Ida last fall that never came back online, which was one of the initial dominoes to fall for diesel prices.
When you look at the cost of producing diesel, this all actually started before the war in October of last year, where the cost of natural gas increased substantially in Europe. And why is that important to a Midwest farmer? It's because the cost of producing that diesel increased with it.
While a possible diesel shortage is looming, diesel prices aren't forecast to see a dramatic drop anytime soon.
You know, these prices are not going to go back to the levels we had at the beginning of 2021. It's more likely that we'll see maybe $5 to $10 decline in crude price, and that would equate to maybe 50 to 60 cents on the diesel price itself.
That's as diesel prices could remain high for at least 2 years.
Well, it could take a couple of years, and keep in mind, the longer we go down this road, that demand eclipses supply, the more catching up we're going to have to do.
And as farmers weigh their options and booking diesel for summer and fall needs, net farm income is still expected to remain strong. It all hinges on whether commodity prices can hold.
The high heat and humidity continues to be a concern for livestock producers as new estimates roll in on the number of cattle lost in southwest Kansas. Reuters reporting at least 2,000 animals died based on the number of carcasses state officials were asked to help dispose of, although state livestock leaders say the number could be much higher. Triple-digit temperatures combined with high humidity creating the perfect storm to overwhelm those animals. Now, the high heat is expected to continue through the month, adding pressure to cattle weights and feed efficiency.
The other part of the death loss that people don't think about always is the loss of gain. I actually had an example of it this morning, 20 minutes ago, at one of the places I feed at. We had sold a pretty good shot of cattle, three different pens, and to get the trucks to come out right, we had put a few cattle out in one pen on Monday, and then that same pen today, and the weight difference was 54 pounds. So yeah, it's hot here too, so cattle lose weight, shrink, and they don't get it back.
You remember these images of buildings falling into raging flood waters at Yellowstone National Park. Weather officials say the Yellowstone River hit its highest level in nearly a century as it traveled east to Montana. It crested at 16 feet Wednesday, shutting down the Billings water treatment plant, flooding farms and ranches. Now, the floodwaters raging through Yellowstone may have permanently altered the terrain in the country's oldest national park. We are seeing some improvement in the drought monitor as of late. Meteorologist Matt Urasovic joins us with an update. Matt.
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. Our drought monitor has seen some improvements. It's still, though, extremely dry in the southwest. And if we look here, of about 4 weeks ago, you can see the drought monitor extremely dry, central Texas, West Texas, and even eastern parts of New Mexico, and then all the way back to the Pacific coast, extremely dry, even up into the northern Rockies as well. You put this into motion, and you're going to see the changes over the last couple of weeks here as we arrive at our brand new drought monitor just out yesterday afternoon. You can see that there's still extreme to exceptional drought conditions for parts of Texas, back into New Mexico, and all the way back to the Pacific coast. That does include California as well. Even some parts of the north with regards to the northern Rockies, up into the northern plains. But then if you come east of the Rockies, you slowly start to see those improvements. We've seen a lot of rainfall there, and that's been something that has really made the soil very moist. And we've also seen some improvements in the southeast with some of those abnormally dry spots coming out and kind of coming back to normal with regards to our drought monitor. Then if we take a look at our root zone, it's kind of much of the same. They almost mirror one another. Extremely damp still in southern Florida and across parts of the Mississippi River Valley, even up into the Ohio Valley as well. And the upper Midwest, slowly starting to see a little bit more moisture there, keeping the soil a little bit more damp. And if you look back towards the west, really from central Texas to the Pacific coast, a lot of dry soil, except there in the Pacific Northwest, where we've seen a lot of rain come down from parts of the Rockies and the Cascades. And Louis Nigg of South Dakota says the weather is finally helping him out. He says that they have dry fields now, and he sent this picture of his 8-year-old out in the field rolling beans. Glad he's helping Dad out on the farm. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Today is the end of the public comment period for a highly controversial climate rule that could negatively impact the nation's food producers. AgDay national reporter Michelle Rook has a look at why the agricultural community is so alarmed.
Clinton, in March, the Securities and Exchange Commission proposed a rule regarding greenhouse gas emissions disclosure requirements. Now, it would require publicly traded companies to provide climate-related information from their entire value chain. Greenhouse gas emissions would need to be reported in financial statements and annual reports filed with the SEC. There are very few products in the supply chain that don't trace their beginnings back to a farm or ranch. Those ag products already face extensive regulations, but with this rule, it's likely the reporting requirements would pile on farms and ranches of all sizes and could even force those operators to disclose personal information and farm business data. NCPA's Ethan Lane says that's why it's such a concern.
This is kind of the worst of what you can think of when you talk about climate creeping into areas of business where it doesn't really belong. The Securities and Exchange Commission seeking to require any farmer or rancher selling a commodity into a publicly traded company would be required under this regulation to report their emissions.
Lane says not only is it bad policy, it's overreach as it falls outside the agency's jurisdiction since they're in business to regulate Wall Street and not farmers and ranchers.
Not only is that feasible, it is completely unfeasible, but it's also a massive departure from SEC's core mission and something that we believe is completely inappropriate given their charter. So
Farm Bureau officials add that the rule also undermines decades of sustainability efforts by farmers and ranchers who have worked to reduce ag emissions. Lane says NCBA joined with 119 other ag organizations and has submitted comments outlining their objections to the 510-page rule. He says thousands of farmers and ranchers have also submitted their comments, so they're hopeful that will interject some common sense into the process.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Now she'll be right back to discuss what's been driving markets this week beyond the high heat. And later, farmers in Ukraine fighting back what one city official says they're doing as Russian forces move in. That's getting noticed around the world.
Find farm equipment on Machinery Pete's June 21st online auction. No reserve, no buyer fees. Start bidding now at auctions.machinerypete.com.
The state of the economy is weighing on bankers in ag country, with the new Rural Main Street Index dipping below growth neutral for the first time since September of 2020. The June survey now sitting at 49.8. That's down almost 8 points from May. Bankers were also asked if they thought the U.S. was heading toward a recession, and a majority rated the likelihood at above 50%. Ernie Goss, who runs the survey, saying much like the nation, the growth in the rural Main Street economy is slowing. He says supply chain issues, from transportation bottlenecks to labor shortages, continue to limit growth, with farmers bracing for higher interest rates. Corn, soybeans, and wheat all trading up double digits on Thursday. Michelle Rook is back with a look at other issues that the market is watching right now.
Thanks, Clinton. And joining us with market analysis, Ted Seifried with Zaner AgHedge. And really, when we look at the grains, I'm not sure that we've been trading all the grain fundamentals lately. We've been really tied up in these outside market influences, haven't we?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Michelle. You know, we traded the grain fundamentals, let's say last Thursday and kind of into the report last Friday. But then after that, it was all the focus on what's happening in the outside markets, specifically the big meltdown that you're seeing in the stock market, now more than 20% off of, or down more than 20% here for year to date, and the big meltdown that you're having in the cryptocurrency market, which has really accelerated Friday, Monday into Tuesday. And we're doing that because, well, it really ties into the whole inflationary idea. The amount of wealth destruction that you're seeing in the cryptocurrency market and in the stock market really goes a long way to offset all of the money that was printed in the last couple of years, because you have the printing pushing money into the economy, and then you have this wealth destruction taking money out. So the idea is this inflationary bubble bursting? And if that is the case, you can argue, I would argue, that if I look at a corn balance sheet, let's call it a 1.4 billion bushel carryover, I think that's a fairly bullish number, especially with the stocks to usage number. But is it a 770 corn number? No, it's probably more like a 650 corn number. So there's this additional component of the market that is really tied into inflation. And if that inflation is going to fall away now, well, then we have to kind of reprice things. You can have fundamentals as bullish or maybe even more bullish than what they are today and still be talking about lower prices if and when this inflationary bubble bursts. So,
right.
Every day is something new, and we don't really know what to look at on any given day. But yes, there is a bigger gorilla in the room, Michelle, and that is, what's going on with the stock market, cryptocurrency, and inflation as a whole.
For professional marketing advice specifically tailored to your needs, call Zaner AgHedge at 312-277-0113.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here. Matt, as we look at precipitation here, there's just not a lot on this map. Maybe some in New England, but beyond that, it's just hot and humid.
Oh yeah, over the last 24 hours, we didn't see much, and we're going to see a couple of showers, especially northern Rockies and out west, but not too much is expected over the next couple of days. And you will see some of that precipitation as we kind of head through the next couple of days, but most of it is going to be back across the west, something we haven't said in a while. We're going to see some of that coming out southern parts of the Rockies there through Colorado, New Mexico, and then more as another system moves through the Pacific Northwest through parts of Montana and then up into Canada. So most of that precipitation will miss us here in the northern plains and the upper Midwest. Few showers in the east and a couple of pop-up thunderstorms down across Florida and through the central part of the U.S. right through the Mississippi River Valley. Other than that, though, there's not much that's going to be going on. And you can see a lot of big blue H's on our map. That's going to keep things sunny and hot, especially across the south and into the southeast, where once that cold front slides through, the heat and humidity is going to crank up yet again. It's going to stay sunny across the Great Lakes and across the northern Rockies once that first system moves its way on in. And again, once that one system moves off the coast, not much going on. A couple pop-up showers and storms here and back through the Rockies there in the west as we head through Saturday evening. So that's not going to be much help to our drought monitor, although a little bit of rain is better than nothing back here where we've got these drought conditions just persisting over the past couple of months now. We're still abnormally dry in parts of the east, something that we'll continue to keep an eye on because as we head through this upcoming week, look at the ridge building in the east, and that's going to keep it like this, hot and humid right through the center of the country and then east toward the Atlantic Ocean and along the Gulf Coast. Temperatures in the triple digits today for some parts of the area. And then as we head into tomorrow morning, very warm and humid through the center of the country. And again, seeing the 90s and potentially highs approaching that century mark all the way up toward Omaha, where we are going to see some baseball being played there as we head over the next couple of days. But look at these heat index values above that century mark as we head through this afternoon. And we'll keep an eye on the heat wave for next week. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Paducah, Kentucky, hot and humid with a thunderstorm possible, a high of 97 degrees. Broken Bow, Nebraska, sunny, humid, and breezy, a high of 93. And Happy Camp, California, cooler with showers likely, a high of 59.
An update this morning on the situation farmers are facing in Ukraine right now. It's estimated the country's farm industry has already lost $4.3 billion from war damage. That's the total damage to farmland, machinery, and livestock due to Russia's invasion. The Kyiv School of Economics estimating about half of the already immense destruction from the war comes from pollution caused by mines and unharvested crops. Almost a quarter of the total, about $926 million, is from damage done to farm machinery due to military activity and occupation. Meanwhile, it continues to be a struggle to move grain out of the country. President Biden saying that the U.S. will build temporary silos on Poland's border in an effort to help facilitate grain exports out of the war-torn nation.
Thousands of tons of grain that are locked up in those silos ready to be exported, but they can't get out through the Black Sea because they get blown out of the water. So we're working on a plan to get it out through other countries by rail.
The U.S. for now has ruled out sending military ships into the region, which would risk Russian retaliation. And Ukrainian farmers appear to be joining in the fight against Russia in their own unique way. There are reports farmers in the area of Melitopol have made Russian soldiers sick. Now the mayor is saying, quote, our farmers prepared another gift for the Russians, recently treated sweet cherries, which caused mass illness among those who stole them from farmers, end quote. He says pro-Ukrainian sentiment remains strong in the area. That's despite Russian authorities portraying themselves as those who rescued residents from Ukraine. Coming up, a celebration of summer and the drink that seems to go hand in hand with keeping cool and making memories. Next in the country.
It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.
Summer officially arrives on Tuesday, so it's time to fire up the grill and pour yourself a cold glass of, you guessed it, milk. June is National Dairy Month, and according to a new survey from the dairy company Fairlife, more than half of Americans polled said that milk is their drink of choice to cool down on a hot summer day. And where are people drinking it? Well, the survey says Westerners and Northerners were more likely to grab a glass of milk this time of year compared to Midwesterners or Southerners. But don't think too unkindly of Midwesterners. They are more likely to try a milk and burger combo compared to other regions. In addition, nearly 3/4 of Americans polled said they still prefer dairy milk over the alternatives. And that's all the time we have this morning. So glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.